All right, what's up, guys? We're back here on Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel, as mentioned earlier, on the Kentucky Vanderbilt stream. I am solo this evening for this show and the one we're going to do after Florida and Arkansas. As long as that one doesn't go 3 hours, we'll do that tonight. Maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see how that game goes. But hop on in. The best way to get in on these streams tonight will be a super chat, because I will not be able to go chat by chat as we do usually as we do, because I'm not going to be able to look at the chat the entire time. So behave yourselves. But we'll get into Alabama's comeback win at Tennessee in a game where they led by, for 20 seconds the entire game. So we'll get into that. We'll get some quick thoughts on Texas's big win at Texas A&M. I think that sets up the Longhorns up pretty nicely now. They still got work to do, but that's a big win there for sure. So, all right. Sam is here. The other Sam still arguing about Missouri's spot in the power rankings that were done 5 days ago. So a lot of that to come here in the chat. But hop on in, give your thoughts, and I'll give you my thoughts here as we jump into Alabama 71, Tennessee 69. And no, Sam Smith, I know you said earlier that I'd be pumping the sunshine here. Tennessee's offense was atrocious down the stretch in this game. They shoot 38%, had some really bad offensive possessions. You know, it wasn't really about turnovers, but we knew that. They weren't going to turn the ball over a lot against Alabama. It's a team that just doesn't force a lot of turnovers. But Tennessee just had way too many bad offensive possessions. And, again, go figure, because that's kind of been the theme here. And look, I did see this chat here from Logan. I don't necessarily agree with the first part, because I think it changed it from a seeding standpoint. But Tennessee, how many shots did they miss inside of 5 feet? Like, there was a ton of just missed shots. And, I mean, you just can't win games like that, not against Alabama. The theme all year long has been what? It is, you cannot put Alabama away if you can't score. And it just kind of played out that way. Like, Tennessee just could not get enough offensively there down the stretch, and they also couldn't stop LeBaron Philon. Let's call it what it is. Like, LeBaron Philon just completely took over the game. He outscored Tennessee in the final 6 minutes himself. What was it? Carl Ravage said 13-8, I think it was. So, I mean, Logan's not wrong here in terms of the layups and the physicality. A little bit on both sides. I thought Alabama struggled with that early on with Tennessee's physicality. Tennessee winds up with 25 offensive rebounds, but when you miss 48 shots, that's a high number. But at the same time, to I think lose a game where you did dominate the glass in that regard, that's frustrating, because, Tennessee won the rebounding battle by 17. They had, 25 second chance points here as I'm looking at it, 40 points in the paint. Like, they were really good in those areas, but I thought Alabama adjusted better in the second half. Aiden Sherrill, I thought, was a bit better there. And, yeah, I just thought it was one where Philon got out in transition. He made some big shots. Wrightsell made some big shots. You heard Jimmy Dykes kept talking about, Latrell Wrightsell just getting out of transition, gets to the deep corner, bang. Like, that's what happened. And so, and point out here, too, by Brock, I see this one coming through. Again, guys, I'm not going to see all these unless they're a super chat. But, yeah, also he didn't turn the ball over as much, right? Alabama in the first half, my goodness, you want to talk about me mentioning Tennessee sort of just leaving a lot on the table offensively with some of those possessions in the second half. How many of those possessions did Alabama have in the first half, right? So, that was kind of something where I think you look at it from that standpoint, and it was just kind of a tale of two halves there when it came to, I thought Alabama just did a pretty poor job of valuing the ball in the first half. Tennessee had a lot to do with that. But second half, I thought it was just kind of, Tennessee couldn't make shots. And, we do joke with Sam Smith a lot on some of these, but it's like, sometimes that's what it comes down to. So you just have to make shots, and they didn't do enough of that down the stretch. And like I said, they couldn't stop Philon. So, all right, going back through some of my notes here on this game, I did take more notes than usual. So have a seat, because I've got a few here to give you. We haven't mentioned the Nate Ament injury yet. Certainly that's something that we will obviously be monitoring moving forward. Gets his leg wrapped up there in the first half. And comes out, tries to play in the second half, hit the jump shot, but just, that's what it comes down to. Where he couldn't keep playing. What did he finish? 11 minutes? I don't know what the final number was on that. So, yeah, that's just kind of obviously something we're going to have to look at, because that is a big factor for Tennessee moving forward, depending on that. I mean, he was moving around. If you didn't see the game, it just seemed like he re-aggravated it. You didn't want to probably mess with that if you're Rick Barnes, so we'll get the story, and I will not be able to give that to you on the stream because I am not going to be watching the press conference or anything like that. So, so that's kind of, we'll talk about that on Monday when we get into Power Ranks, and maybe tonight too. Remember, we will do the Florida-Arkansas stream later tonight, so maybe if we get something out of that, we'll bring it up. But yeah, the Nate Ament injury is going to be something that will be a big talking point coming out of this game, both in the short term and the long term. So that's something. I mean, look, guys, it was something where Tennessee had 11 offensive rebounds 15 minutes into the game. I mentioned, they missed a ton of shots in a row, but it seemed like every single time they get their hand on the ball, they tip it, and they'd have a shot at another shot. And whether that went in or not, I don't know. So, I mean, just so many, just like the ball just tipped and all this other stuff, and they just could not make enough of those shots, like I said, that were very easy type shots. I know Jimmy Dykes brought that up a couple times. You can't miss layups at the rim against anybody in the SEC, but you can't miss layups at the rim against Alabama, knowing how many additional possessions they're going to get. And it wound up costing Tennessee. I mean, remember, like, if you take the number of shots they missed, I don't have the official stat here, but if you find that number of shots that Tennessee missed from 5 feet in, I mean, it's enough to win the game, right? So it's just, it was pretty glaring, I thought, in some of those instances. Again, it's nice to get that many offensive rebounds. You have the second chance points, but you didn't make enough of those, in my opinion. I mentioned earlier, I thought Okpara, Jalen Carey, like those guys, like the physicality early on was a big difference. But I thought Aiden Sherrill adjusted pretty well. Latrell Wrightsell kept Alabama in it close enough in the first half to where you're at least feeling like you've got a shot to stay in this thing. And, without him, that who knows, right? Like, maybe that wasn't enough to get you to this point to where you had a chance to win the game down the stretch. So that's something, boy, I mean, I'm looking at my notes here. I think about that. It didn't really ultimately matter, I guess. Bama winds up hitting the 2 free throws, but I'm sure if you guys were watching it, I mean, Ethan Berg takes the 3 with 10 seconds left or 12 seconds left in the first half when Tennessee's trying to get the final possession. Bama comes down, hits 2 free throws, which, again, Gilliespie wound up. I think, didn't Gilliespie come back and hit 2 free throws after that? So maybe it wound up being a wash. But like I said, though, those are the type of possessions that you cannot have in this kind of game against Alabama, because you're going to look back at all of these, right? And this is where I'm sure, as a Tennessee fan, you're just thinking, all of these possessions you can look back on and be like, 1 possession, 2 possession, we win the game. And so that is absolutely frustrating. So I'm not going to push back on any Tennessee fan's frustration tonight. You should absolutely be frustrated. So, again, just for a variety of reasons, I think. So, Alan asked, where's Max? Max is on assignment tonight. So he's on assignment, Alan. So it's just me. So I appreciate you guys hopping in. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're just jumping in for the first time. Leave a super chat if you want to make sure I get to your comments. Otherwise, will not be able to do that very often. Sam's hating on me for saying a bad word about Rick. Sam, I have said about 15 times in 9 minutes how many bad offense possessions Tennessee had. I don't think that's all on the players. So, yeah. So going into the second half, again, Alabama got off to a really good start, and it kind of went back to that same theme I always talk about. Can you put them away? And Tennessee just could not put them away. And it's just kind of one of those where you let a team like that hang around long enough, especially you get down to that situation where they have the final possession, and you just know, like, you've just given yourself, you put yourself in a spot where you just cannot let a team like that get those offensive possessions. So you just can't do it. But Nate Oates got a technical with 14 minutes left in the second half. You could tell Oates was frustrated. And, I don't want to say that wasn't necessarily a turning point, but you've seen that frustration kind of built up because to that point, Alabama could not get in a groove. They had a few sequences there, a few stretches where they looked, pretty good, but they just could not get in that usual groove that you're used to seeing with Alabama. And, Tennessee just kept dominating the paint at that point in the game, but that's where things started to flip a little bit. Where, I have it right here. I'm looking at my notes. Like, here is the exact wording. Just some atrocious offensive possessions from Tennessee. And, that was in my notes with, 12 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go. And that just wound up being kind of the story, I thought. Whether it was, again, it wasn't really careless turnovers, right? They only turned over 6 times. But shot selection, just, missing easy shots, like I said. They just had too many of those in a row to where Alabama at some point is not going to have that many in a row. And that's what it came down to. Wrightsell got the open 3 in transition. He hit that 3. It came down to 8 at that point. And you're thinking, all right, it goes from double digits, comes down to 8. And at that point, like, I'm just looking at it like, like Tennessee better find some offense or this thing is going to, be worrisome down the stretch. And that's where Philon just really turned it on. And, if you guys want to know why I talked about Philon so much this year, like, it's just when this guy gets going. And remember, he didn't play in the midweek. And Alabama fans can remind me. I don't remember the exact specifics on that. It was unspecified ailment or whatever the phrasing was on the injury report or whatever it was. But, what came off the bench, I think, didn't start this game, and he turned it on the second half. And he was the difference, no question. It was LeBaron Philon. I think the combination of Philon and Tennessee's offense, that was the difference, and pretty straightforward. The groin, that's right, Big Baller Brett. You're right, it was the groin thing. And so, it was very, very straightforward, guys. It was, if you really look at the theme of both of these teams this season, and I know Sam will remind me, this is something that obviously goes beyond this season for Tennessee, but the way this game played out was what the theme has been for both these teams this season, and that is LeBaron Philon can just take over a game for Alabama, and Tennessee's offense can just leave so much to be desired. And they brought up the stat, guys. Now I assume this is Tennessee's alone, and this is not going to make you feel any better. You're watching the game, you know exactly what it is, but what was it, 4 blown 10-plus point leads for Tennessee, tied for the most in the SEC. So now I assume they're going to sit alone in that. Alabama was tied for the second most comebacks in the SEC. I think they were tied for second. Big Baller Brett can remind me if I'm wrong on that. So I assume maybe they're first now, tied for first, something like that. So it's just what these teams have done. And Alabama, again, you can't put them away. It's just really hard. Some teams have, but it's just very difficult. And Tennessee just has not been able to sustain offense well enough to be able to hold leads. And that's the story. So, and I thought it was it's ironic, right? On the final possession where Tennessee has a chance. Oh, that's right, Big Baller Brett. I forgot. You got sent to a wedding for this guy. I completely forgot about that. So, Big Baller Brett. Apologies. I'm sure you'll be watching the replay. But, I said, yeah, maybe that's why you won. Ironic that on the final possession, like, Tennessee can't get the offensive rebound. And they spent the whole game getting that, right? So it was just one of those where everything just went wrong down the stretch. Like I said earlier, Philon outscores Tennessee in the final 6 minutes himself. And that was that. So, that was kind of the story, and everyone's kind of talked about it now. Let me look at some of these other stats here as I pull up more of the advanced stats. Yeah, Alabama winds up shooting 45% from the floor, 10 to 27 from 3. They turn it over 10 times. I want to say a lot of those came in the first half, which I don't remember. We just talked about this. They only had 2 in the second half. Tennessee, as I mentioned, 25 offensive rebounds, 25 second chance points, but you would almost think that number should be a bit higher with that many points. And Tennessee won the points in the paint, 40 to 26. And that was kind of it. So Gilliespie finishes with 26. You had Estrella finished with 12. Carey had 10. Akpara with 8. Evans with 7. Then, of course, Wrightsell goes for 25, Philon for 23, Holloway for 12. And it's like it was really those three guys, scoring-wise, that were really it for Alabama. But you just also had, other guys making some key plays there that weren't necessarily scoring. I mentioned Aiden Sherrill. I thought, he struggled a bit scoring-wise, but he played a key role in this game, just from adjusting a bit, I think, to the physicality, and it helped just kind of having some of those other guys just be in the right position to make plays. That also helps too. So, Houston Millette, good point there defensively. I know you guys are mentioning that. That was also important as well. So, all right. So there's some thoughts on the game. Let's talk about what this means in terms of like ramifications here. From an SEC standpoint, obviously for Tennessee, from that standpoint, now that they drop into the 10-6 range, that's going to make it a bit tougher probably when it comes to knowing the potential tiebreakers and those kind of things. It's impossible to know right this second when you're talking double bye in the SEC tournament and all this kind of stuff, because now you've got Tennessee is at 10-6. You've got Kentucky at 10-6. You've also got Missouri at 10-6, which I know kind of the way you break the ties right now. Remember, Missouri's win over Florida is doing a lot of work right now for the Tigers. And so because it's a three-way tie at the moment, and that will not change coming out of tonight's games because no one else can be in that spot. Even if Arkansas loses, they'll drop to 5 losses. So right now, if you played the SEC tournament today, Missouri would get the double bye. I think that's right. Is it right, guys? Maybe I'm forgetting something on that. But I want to say maybe that's the case. Sorry, I've got to remember all these tiebreaker scenarios and who beat who and all that. But nonetheless, Missouri, I think, is in a pretty good spot after that win at Mississippi State. And then it comes down to the tiebreakers with these other teams. But Alabama moves to 12-4. If you're Alabama, you know what you're rooting for tonight. You're probably, if you want to, again, either way, you have the tiebreaker head-to-head with Arkansas. It really doesn't matter all that much, but you have some possibilities if you want to make a run at the SEC title. You wouldn't mind having Arkansas beat Florida, moves you a game closer, even though, again, in that spot, Florida would still have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Alabama. So a lot still to be determined on the seeding for the SEC tournament. So, again, no reason to really go too far into that right now because it's not as straightforward as maybe you would have thought it would have been entering the day, especially with some of these results. So, not the case now. All right. Meanwhile, if we look at quickly, remember, guys, if you want some additional thoughts on this game, Alabama-Tennessee, leave a super chat. That'll make sure I get to your comment here. And I know Florida and Arkansas are going to tip here shortly if they haven't already. And because I am going to be going solo on that one, I am going to make this a little bit short just so I can watch that entire game since I'm going to have to give some extended thoughts on that tonight. So Auburn and Ole Miss have tipped off as well. But I do want to give you some quick thoughts also. And again, if you have any questions, comments on, Tennessee, Alabama moving forward, coming out of this game, throw them in the chat and we can get into those in just a second. But I will give you some quick thoughts on Texas and Texas A&M. Texas got a big win, 76-70 at A&M. That was a crucial game for one of those teams. And so, hey, that was a big game for Texas. And I looked at ESPN's kind of updated bracket watch. I guess they're calling it bubble watch, whatever it is. And, they're kind of thinking on this. And like I said, this is just ESPN. I'm not following every single bracketology thing out there today. I'm chasing the little guys around here. And I just haven't been able to follow every single bracket update to the second today. But their thinking, I believe, coming out of this is that Texas helps themselves by winning this game 76-70, but they still have more work to do if they want to feel comfortable. A&M does not do themselves much of a favor here by losing this game because they do still have the home game against Kentucky on Tuesday, but that game at LSU next Saturday is just not going to do much for Texas A&M. So that did not help to give away this home game here. Even though these two teams split the season series, you've got a really jumbled mess when it comes to Texas, Texas A&M, Auburn. I think Missouri has separated themselves a bit after the win at Mississippi State, at least for now, because Missouri, as I said, does have those nice wins, and I think those wins are doing a lot more work for them than the, I guess, underwhelming non-conference schedule is doing to hurt them. So that's helping Missouri. And like I said, it really comes down to, you avoid the bad losses also. And by winning that game at Mississippi State the way they did earlier, that helps Missouri. So Texas gets the win. And, Tramon Mark, we talked about him a lot this season. If this guy just kind of gets going, we know he's like one of the most experienced players out there. When you think about the number of meaningful games this guy's played, not just in the SEC, but remember those couple of years at Houston as well. I mean, he had 23 today. I want to say, did that tie? That may have tied his season high. So Tramon Mark was huge in that game for Texas. And I just thought, when it came down to it, this is why we always talk about Texas, right? And why we keep saying, Max and I have our fun. This week we had him, Max had him did he have him in the Final Four? You guys remind me. I had him in the Elite Eight because I'm like, Texas is one of those teams that if they get the right matchup, they're talented enough to scare you a bit. And, even in a game like this where Voki Titus only shoots 2 free throws, like imagine us talking about a game like that. He still had 14 points. He still had a really, 14 and 7, I think it was. And Texas really, they win the rebounding battle, which you would think they would in this kind of game. And A&M just couldn't buy a 3. They went 5 and 19 in this game from 3. Rashaun Agee was really good. I mean, he had 22 points, 8 rebounds. He was kind of the story here. 2 steals, 2 blocks. He played a really good game, but it just kind of came down to it where Texas just made more plays, and I thought they just, had a little bit more of that extra something. And look, they were up. They're up 11 with a minute to go, I think. So it winds up being 76-70, but Texas A&M got off to a good start, but Texas winds up rallying and all that. So, yeah, I thought it just a huge win for Texas. And like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch every single second of this game, but what I did see, and that was a pretty good chunk, at least of the second half of this game, and I'll go back as I usually do and kind of just do a little quick replay on the first half. But I think Texas is still a team that if they can get into the NCAA tournament, the problem, again, could be, seed-wise where they wind up. I find it hard to believe maybe they would be any higher than a 9. They could be, potentially, because they do have that game at Arkansas on Wednesday. If they win that one and they beat Oklahoma, then, their profile goes up a bit. But it does still seem like, I wouldn't say you're just completely comfortable yet if you're Texas, but I think if they were to win the game against Oklahoma next Saturday, and even if they lose at Arkansas, I still think Texas is going to get in. And some of those SEC tournament pairings on Wednesday or Thursday could matter too for teams like Texas, and especially Texas A&M. And that goes without saying for a team like Auburn as well. So, so that's where things stand with the Longhorns coming out of that one, and we'll kind of clean up that game a little bit on Monday also. So, all right, what else do you guys have? Let me know any questions, comments, thoughts you have. Like I said, I'm going to hop off here shortly because I don't want to miss much of this Florida-Arkansas game since we're going to come back in a couple hours and share some thoughts on that one. Off to a fast start, it seems, based on what I'm watching here in the corner. So you guys let me know. Any super chats, throw them my way. And let me just tell you quickly about our fine sponsors. Have a fine chat here, but we also have a lot of fine sponsors. Here at Southeastern 16, you know who I'm talking about. It is our friends at And Collar, A-N-D, collar.com, performance menswear brand. They're tremendous. They invented the Workleisure. This is the ultimate Workleisure here tonight for me as I'm sitting solo in the garage talking to you guys about some SEC basketball. Head over there for the nice discount, SEC16 for 16% off over at And Collar. And yes, I mean, they have a lot of great stuff over there. Quarter zips, polos, button-ups, the pants. Don't forget the pants. You got to have pants, folks. The suits, head over there. Check that out. SEC16, 16% off over at andcollar.com. Support our friends at ROKFORM, ROKFORM.com, the world's strongest magnetic phone case. Extreme protection, super strong magnets, rock lock, secure mounting, SEC25, 25% off over at ROKFORM. And Icon wallets. If you bet on the Tide or bet against Tennessee, whichever way you want to look at it, maybe you want some money from our friends at FanDuel. Put it in your wallet from Icon Wallets. Premium Napa leather. Remember, they are officially licensed collegiate wallets. They got those 3 interchangeable university icons. Check it out. SEC16 for 20% off over at Icon Wallets. All right. There are fine sponsors. As I said, you guys are the best in the chat. And, I mean, this is, again, it's kind of something where you look at the way these games are going to play out tonight. I mean, Auburn is basically playing for their NCAA tournament lives, I think. Florida-Arkansas becomes a bit more intriguing now, maybe, depending on if Arkansas were to pull off the upset, because that would bring Florida back a little bit in the SEC standings. But Alabama's win, I think, does not allow Florida necessarily to clinch the solo SEC regular season title. But you guys can remind me on that when we talk about it later. I try to keep all these scenarios in my head, but I look like Alan from The Hangover with all these numbers thrown at my way. So, all right, so I see Floppy's here. I'll see you with heartbreak in a couple of hours, Blake. Love you. See, I appreciate that kind of love. I don't always get that here in the chat, but you guys are a fine bunch, so I expect nothing less from you. So, yeah, you guys are having some fun in the chat. So, all right, I'm going to hop off. I need to go watch Tennessee, or I'm not going to watch that again. Sorry, Tennessee fans. You're probably not going to want to watch that one again either. But I'm going to go watch Florida, Arkansas. Ole Miss out to a hot start on Auburn, I see here as well. So I'm going to get to work on those. And, yeah, Ole Miss hit 5 threes now? 5-6 minutes into the game? Not what you want to see, I'm sure. But, all right, appreciate you guys as always. We will hop back on after this Florida-Arkansas game. Unless it goes 3 hours, then it'll be tomorrow morning. But we will plan on doing that tonight. And another solo, fun, exciting evening in the chats. And, yes, I appreciate you guys behaving, right? I always appreciate that. We'll see how this Florida-Arkansas game goes tonight and whether that behavior will continue in a fine manner here this evening. But, all right, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out. We appreciate you, and I'll talk to you here in a bit. Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel.